All right, so as you can see behind me, we have finished putting up the new board for behind the meter box. So let me show you what we did. It was just basically unhook the old stuff, rip the old board out down there, put the new board on. And then what I've done since this meter box had pulled out completely from the screws in the back, and there were no screws left in here. The screws had actually fallen into the box apparently or something. Since that had no physical way to mount to the board, whereas the disconnect does, what I did is I took some clamps, some spacers, because obviously there's a gap here, and screwed this directly to that box. I probably used longer screws than I needed to, but either way, they're in there. I may take them out and go back to smaller screws just to have that in there. And then the other thing I did is I took a block down here, and it's barely hanging on in there, but the whole purpose of this block was simply just to hold this corner of the box up, and it's kind of doing it. And that's just kind of holding that bottom corner steady so it doesn't like shift anywhere or anything like that, which is fine. It's not going anywhere. And now everything is nice and solid, which is beautiful. Unfortunately, that means that now it's time to go back in to the shed and get working on the wiring for the lights, which I want to do, but I don't want to because it's warm out and it's going to be hot. Anyway, we'll see you back in the shed. Hey everybody, okay, so we're back in the shed, and pardon the rain, I'll try to make this one quick, but you just saw the replacing of the plywood behind the meter box. That's what we just did yesterday, and then we came out after we finished that and we got all the lights up. So if I do a quick pan, you'll see that now we have, you know, those 4 lights there, and then the other 4 lights over here. So all the lights are now up and wired. So I'm just going to do a quick show of the process that we went through putting that up.
Alright, so just a quick voiceover for a lot of this stuff. So the first thing I did with my 2x4s is I just used a couple of these cheap clamps that I bought from Walmart just to clamp it in place. The very first one I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't really measure anything, but I eyeballed the first one level, and then this is actually the second one to go across from it. So you can see you can't really reach very well, but I kind of made do. And then after these were clamped in place, then I would go back and use my level once again to not only make sure that the second 2x4 was level as well, but also that it was level between the 2x4s on each end as well, so that way the ceiling isn't going to be twisted or anything at that point. So just clamp it together, both ends, jump up very safely on the ladder, and then screw everything back together. After the 2x4s were in place, then it became time to remount the little brackets that we used for the lights. The first one, again, I just kind of eyeballed into place, and then I took measurements from where it was and then measured everything off afterwards after that. So we just kind of got it more or less in place. It ended up being a little over 20 inches from the roof line measured straight back along that 2x4 to where it was, and then measuring 9.5 inches along the inside of this, which is conveniently got a little ruler on it. That puts that circle right between the two studs, so basically centered. And then I just added a little 6-inch block of 2x4 on the other end, and that's just to give it a little bit extra stability. Really not necessary because the ceiling eventually will hold everything up in place. These lights designed to go right in the ceiling, but I figured in the meantime this can't hurt. I don't know how long it's going to be before I can finally get the ceiling up, so I'd rather not have the lights flopping around. My first attempt at wiring was to just use a bunch of the push connectors, which worked great for the solid wire that was in the regular 14.3, but the stranded copper wire out of the lights themselves, it really didn't play well, so I had to take everything back apart out of the junction box that I started with and just go back to regular wire nuts, although I did use a push connector for the ground connector. After that, then it was just kind of reorganizing the wires enough that I could put everything up into place and plug the light in, which is kind of what I was doing here. Just kind of getting everything tangled up but not pulling any wires out. And then it was just a matter of, well, as you can see, just pushing everything up and trying to get it without stretching anything once I've got everything plugged in. There's actually enough slack where I can screw this onto that little 6-inch block for extra stability or to hold it in place, but I haven't done that yet. In the event that I have to undo everything later because of the inspection, I didn't want to have to make any extra work for myself that I didn't need to. So it was time to plug it in and see if the lights came on. And as you can see, it did. Now you'll see the light changing colors and dimming and everything. This is basically in pairing mode. So when power first comes to this light, which has never been set up, well, that's kind of what pairing mode does. It just kind of flashes at you. So I had to deal with the flashing while I put the cover on and then paired the up later.
And then that's basically what I've done this weekend. We replaced the plywood and we got the lights up. And after that, though, that's it for this week. We're basically on hold until I get the inspector and the electrician out. So anyway,